The single most important moment in the Dark Souls universe is when Gwyn launched his war against the Everlasting Dragons? No. Oh, maybe it's when you relink the fire in the kiln of the first flame. Not so much. Perhaps it's the first time you sprint into the graveyard and get annihilated by skeletons. Okay, that actually is a pretty formative moment in the game, but that's not what this video is about. The single most important moment in the universe of Dark Souls is this. Clearly, there should be no more confusion about any of this. This scene so clearly explains everything that you need to know about the entire world of Dark Souls. No more secrets, no more mysteries or any of this crap. You know, the scene just understands and shows everything. Every person who sees it gets it. So, no more confusion. Vati Vidya, time to wrap it up. Zuli the Witch, go home. No one wants you. Smotown, more like Po-Town, because you lost access to your source of income and are now going to have to seek other venues of employment. Oh God, I am so sorry. I've just ruined your entire life. I'm so sorry.
Dark Souls 1's intro throws a lot at you. It throws dragons, mankind, an age of fire, whatever in God's name Anito is. So I will try to explain larger concepts to those who might not have as much good passing familiarity. God, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting back up.
Having an understanding of Dark Souls entomology is going to be pretty helpful for following along here. Dark Souls is just so big and so much to talk about that it's going to be difficult to explain all the nuances and concepts and tiny little materials, so just have an understanding that things might get complicated and weird. You've been warned. The grand opening and massive world building the game displays immediately is ground to a complete halt once it cuts to your character sitting in a cell in an asylum. It opens big but then properly starts small. So maybe that's why this moment of the body falling through the hole in the roof is so often overlooked. For one, it sets the tone so well for the series, a jump scare to wake you up in this miserable fantasy world. It's a good way to open, but perhaps even that tone shift also overshadows another question. Maybe the single most important question in the entire series. Why, in God's name, does Oscar of Astora throw down a dead body into your cell? That's weird, right? This oddly peculiar moment opens up a world of questioning that confuses me but absolutely consumes my mind. Does any of this make sense to anyone else? Am I grafting on too much confusing baggage onto this scene? Does this even matter? Is it significant at all? Yes, it is. First off, when Oscar throws down the dead body into your cell, the body holds the key to your specific cell. This wasn't just some random wake-up call. Oscar was trying to free you, which is properly in character for him as one of the few good characters in the world of Dark Souls. But he might be the only nice character in the game because he'll soon die about 4 minutes later. If he had lived any longer, then he may have not been such a nice guy. Oh, too soon. Game's 12 years old, too soon. With the key he gave you, your California raisin-looking character can open up his cell door and start his adventure. But if you're listening and thinking about the series of events here, you might have noticed a weird detail that might have seemed off. Wait, if Oscar was trying to give you the key to your cell, then why didn't he just throw down the key to your cell? Why did he have to carry a corpse onto the roof of an asylum just to MGS5 hostage body toss it into a hole? Especially with an unstable roof that Oscar later falls through, even though the fall isn't that far. Oscar got hit with that DS3 fall damage. Why does he do this convoluted series of events just to do a basic action like giving somebody a tiny object that could be easily thrown down to you like a normal human being? That's really weird, right? It's not just an oversight, it's a very specific and deliberate action that was made by the game. Oscar wants to free you from the cell, and he did it by throwing down a dead body. And the reason he does this is because the world of Dark Souls has rules. I underlined that so bad. In Lordran, every single character must abide to the in-game laws of its universe, including the rules on which items must arbitrarily function. The rule about items in Dark Souls is that every single item in the game is either directly given to you in a chest, or on a dead body. There are also a few rare instances where the game doesn't follow this rule, like when an NPC enemy falls off a cliff and then their items just float in the air and you'll never be able to pick up Paladin Leroy's weapons because he fell off the cliff, god dang it. But aside from those individual one-offs, them's the rules. And the game strictly abides by them and does so silently without ever directly addressing it. So if you ever got to the bottom of Ash Lake and ever wondered how in God's name this guy got down here, well, I mean, you're still not gonna know how this specific dude's emaciated corpse got here, but you'll at least know why. That's why Oscar throws down a dead body. He can't just throw down the key itself, he must have a body to accompany the key. He needs to follow the rules of the world. And even though it may seem like a rather backwards and inefficient system, this is how it works. It's not only a startling introduction that effectively sets the tone of the game going forward, but it's also a potent and subtle teaching moment at the very start of the game. Much like how Dark Souls is often praised for having smart and seamless teaching moments through gameplay, it at the very get-go, before the players even had any control, is already training you on the rules and ideas that it commits to. Everybody exalts Dark Souls for doing this in its gameplay and storytelling, but hardly anyone has even acknowledged the importance of this specific moment in its opening cutscene. Super Bunny Hop pointed this out 10 years ago, and I haven't seen another person bring this up in discussion, but I remember watching that video when it released 10 years ago, and here we are in late 2024, and I'm still thinking about it. I mean, who cares? What difference does it make if he throws down the key or the dead body? How could that be the most important moment of the game's series? Is the game's core pillars of its legacy, themes, gameplay, creation myth, the world of Lordran owed to the slavish commitment to its weird rules in this particular moment?
Yes, it is. Remember how I said there are only a few ways you can obtain items in Dark Souls? One of the ways is by having people give them to you, and the most common way for people to give them to you is you buy them from merchants. Doesn't he look nice? I drew that on my...
And that leads to another question of, what are souls? And not the concept of a soul, the essence of a being and their spirit of all, all that crap. It's the currency of the world of Lordran. You trade souls for people's stuff. And they use those souls to help stave off the fate of hollowing. In this universe, the player and every NPC walking around are cursed as the undead, which allows them to die over and over again and will always be revived at a bonfire. But if you die too much, then you lose your humanity, and if you lose your humanity, then you go hollow. But going hollow basically means you become a zombie, and once you're a hollow, when you die, you're permanently dead. Them's the rules. Found it. Which makes sense why you start the game in a cell. Being locked away in an asylum, it's a good way to have someone lose their sanity. Then the giant demons guarding the asylum are tasked to cull them out once they've turned hollow. Although that proposes that the giant big hammer-wielding demons are a more trustable entity than the undead, which presumably could just be a bunch of ugly bowl-cut weirdos that don't really cause much damage. Which leads you down an even deeper rabbit hole. If these are the chosen undead, then where are the normal people? You never once see an alive person in the whole series. Everyone is undead, a demon, or a non-human creature, which can include dragons, giants, tree creatures, sentient crystals, iron golems, talking cats, giant clams, Waffle House parking lot mushroom people, and rats. Does the chosen undead's quest to succeed Lord Gwyn and to relink the First Flame interfere with any of these beings' lives? Do these other entities benefit from an Age of Fire? Does relinking the flame to extend humanity's era of power and influence even affect any of these creatures besides the undead? Is the world of Dark Souls about humanity and their self-centered perceptions of themselves and the relinking of fire and their fear of an age of darkness that seemingly would affect them and them only by having the utmost catastrophic and utterly world-destroying consequences being a product of their own fears, beliefs, causing the painful and slow grinding death of their whole world? Yes, it is. And that is why merchants will sell you dung pies. Yay! It's a deep and constant downward hole that never ends.
But there has to be answers. Many aspects of the Dark Souls world must have more depth than the gameplay may make it seem. So let's go in even deeper!
Enemies, when they die, drop souls. Souls, as previously explained, is the money you use. Souls help prevent hollowing, which is why merchants even sell items at all. Them being undead themselves, they also want to prevent their own hollowing. But souls are also a real numerical value that the player has. Enemies you kill drop souls, so it's assumed that they're the souls of the thing that just died. If that's the case, then why do they drop a numerous amount? Is that because those creatures have killed that many things and have accumulated the inherited souls from its victims? What did an innocent frog ray in the forest do to get 80 souls? Did this frog kill 80 people? How would the ghost in Ulanda, which I wouldn't even consider to be tangible things, manage to hold souls, let alone about 200 of them? If the need for souls only affects the undead, then why do these beings even carry such large amounts, outside of some of them that are just bad guys who have killed a bunch of people? A vagrant, a rare interdimensional item stealing crab monster, drops 100 souls. How do the biblically accurate Togepis gather those souls? Why do they need them? Is having a lot of souls synonymous with having a lot of power? Do souls make you stronger? It makes the player stronger as they use souls to level up, but leveling up with souls is something only the undead can take advantage of. Right? Does Seath the Scaleless have his own bonfire? Do the big skeletons with bad gamer posture have their own bonfires? If not, then what do souls mean to anything else in this world except for the undead? Why does a world that has existed for eons before the age of humanity, the undead, and rats even have a need for souls? Did they ever need souls? Was souls only a concept once the age of humankind came about? Did the currency and power and fuel for their humanity only come from humankind's selfish and needy desire for a more meaningful existence? Is the boiling point of the whole world of Dark Souls humanity circling around the drain of its own heedlessly self-imposed oblivion? Yes, it is. Because when Oscar throws down a body into a hole, he doesn't just do it to immediately establish the atmosphere, or just make an official statement on the game's callous treatment of life. It's a promise to its players that the world of Dark Souls isn't one of mild coincidence or vague gestures at recognizable gameplay mechanics. That Dark Souls is a world that takes itself seriously.
Or so I thought it was. This opening cutscene shows a commitment to the world of Lordran in a way that a lot of the other unspoken elements are not. Initially, I thought it did. This game's introduction makes that promise that its rules will be strictly followed even against conventional wisdom. But as I dig deeper into its rabbit holes, I keep coming up on dead ends that make no sense. Items must follow these specific rules until they don't. Souls can only benefit the undead until everything else in the world relies on them. The main quest that the chosen undead is given affects everybody in the living world, except there's nobody in the living world left to help benefit. Maybe it's signs of underbaked world design. Perhaps I am just a crazy person for trying to dissect a universe that I might not fully understand, and if that's the case, I'm really sorry for bankrupting you, Potown. Smotown. I'm sorry again. Even though I didn't find as many answers as I may have wanted, I still stand by the fact that Oscar dropping a body into your cell is still the most important moment of the game. It's still a promise that it will have dedication to its details, and even though it may not entirely succeed, its attempts still feel emblematic to Dark Souls as a whole, that it will ride out its own inevitable end on its own terms. Whether or not it goes against the assumed logic of others in its genre or even in its own series, if one thing has been consistent about the world of Dark Souls, is that it makes its own rules. You know what they say.
Them's the rules. Did you think that was it? No. We're not even done. We haven't even started talking about the time travel plot of the game, okay? That time itself flows convoluted within the world of Lordran. That heroes are ebbing in and flowing out of time, so Ornstein can die in Dark Souls 1, and he can also be here in Dark Souls 2, but then he can also follow the Son of Grim and become a Dragon Man in Dark Souls 3, and all of this doesn't make any sense because then Soul Never can exist in two different things, and all the worlds in every single event, world bosses, and brackets, everything is suspect. That's because
Hey, anybody want to play some Uncharted?